to another beautiful day on planet Earth and another day of Dose of Did You Know, where intriguing, inspiring, unique individuals come to talk love and life and how it has brought them to where they are today. I am your host, Danny Rocco, and with me is Rich Fitz Jr. How are you today?
I'm well. How are you, my dear?
I am doing fantastic. So I know a little bit about you, and my main squeeze there, Travis from Oscar Mike Radio, knows a bit about you, but tell the rest of the world, who is Rich?
Well, for these purposes, Richard Fitz Jr. is a Gold Star son of a fallen Green Beret warrior who was technically listed as missing in action for over 21 years. Although because of the classified nature, top secret nature of the unit he was involved in, he was technically killed, and we were not really privy to the information because of the classified status.
Okay, well, that just opens up, I'm sure, a lot of questions for a lot of people. And Travis is out there. Travis, we love you. We are going to, before we start, I want to plug the 29th. Everybody log in to the 29th, Oscar Mike Radio. It's going to be on a bunch of different places, but you can find the information actually on my page and on that page. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later on, but just do a save the date in your book, in your phone, so it comes up and you can hear a lot more about Rich and his story in more detail. But what brought you, like, how do you go through that? How did you, I mean, you say it with such ease, but there's a lot of, I feel, depth to it, considering, yes, if that was your father and you knew he was killed and he was brought back, you could mourn, you could go through the process, you could have some sort of closure, but that's not necessarily the case. What is that like for you?
It's, it's almost like a disconnect in a way. And I say this, this leads me to a lot of different things that I've even talked about or felt. But let's put it this way. Like you said, you could have, if you have the body, you can grieve, you can start that process, etc. But this is all I knew. I was 2 years old when this happened. So even when I get emotional or grieve, even to this day, it's hard for me to pinpoint what that grief is, because there was nothing there. That's all I grew up with, not knowing my father at 2 years old. So I don't really know at times how to connect the grief or what is grieving. As a matter of fact, how's this work?
Opposite. It's going to mess with your brain.
Anyway, so it's hard to really connect with that and explain that situation. All I can tell you is I just did not know him. I have very few pictures. I knew of what he was, but when I was little, it didn't really sink in what a Green Beret was. He's in the military, but there was nothing there for me tangibly to grab onto, and I get no answers or nothing. That's what you deal with. You're just used to it. So any little hint of or spark of evidence or questions, or maybe this, hey, I heard this, or this might be him in this picture. It was, it was always a letdown. And so you get used to that, and then you just try to go your own way,
Right. You develop, I guess it's not like a standard kind of thing. You developed your way of dealing with your father not being there, what you were told, about him, and then what you learned. But something inside you created. Maybe was it the mystery? Was it the curiosity? Was it trying to find more about your father? Because it led you to a documentary.
It did. Well, there was always questions in me, and there was also, when we had the main funeral, when his remains were returned, which was January of 1990, when we had the big local funeral, there was also another funeral a few months later in Arlington with the commingled remains of the rest of the Green Berets killed on the mission. But, up until that point, there was always that, like you said, that mystery of not knowing. And I was only hearing little bits and pieces, and not very close to my father's side of the family. So there was a lot of disconnect in many ways, but you're always thinking. And when that funeral happened in 90, there was, I can't tell you how many people I met. But everybody said, wow, what a story. You got, incredible story, this and that. Now, at that time, it was still classified. I was actually being told classified information at that time.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a very, surreal process. I think in many ways, I didn't think it was right to jump on the 15 minutes of fame at the time. That's the simplest way I can put it. There was a little bit more depth and respect to it somehow inside me that I said, you know what? I think I just needed time to absorb it and learn it. And I use this phrase a lot. I had what felt like an emotional lifetime to even, figure it out, let it absorb, and I was still finding out more. So, a few years later, the entire unit had a presidential citation award, and it was finally declassified. And that was in 2001. So you still got a lot of time from 90 to 2001 that was still technically classified. So there was a time, to answer your question, that I already had this in my head that, yes, there's a good story there. I had asked my mother one day questions that she couldn't even remember because we're human, but there came to that time where my own son is looking at me in my eyes, asking me questions about my dad and that I couldn't answer. And I said, wow. I said, I think that was the kick in the ass that said, get down in the basement, start digging through all the stuff again, get your head together and see what you can do. And now by this time, everything was declassified. So I had people connecting to me. I had these very just undeniable coincidences, I guess, that just kept leading me in a direction. And it was just really, some of it was kind of crazy, but it just kept growing legs.
I find we're curiosity of people, right? Like humans are curious.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there's ancestry.com. People are like, oh, where did I come from? What were my ancestors like? What was my great grandfather like? If you don't know them. So that is embedded in us. And then we like to share it. But I feel like, and maybe I'm off topic, but I'm thinking of off a little bit on how you felt. But for me, I'd be like, I would want to know, because I'm sure it's just not my dad. I'm sure it's someone else's dad or grandfather, or just, it would be bigger than me. And I would want to know to shed light for someone else too. Or maybe they can help me through of a better understanding of who I am and who my father was. I mean, did you have any of that kind of stuff? Or was it just I just want to find out about this?
Honestly, I got to say, I think that's natural to have that. It's an obvious thing, but there was something, not to belittle it, but you're right. I mean, that's how the natural human spirit kind of works in a situation like that. But there was something that always was in here that said, there's something bigger about this, and what he was doing. And you got to be honest with you, he was killed at 22 years old. I buried him when I was 23. But at that young age, I don't mean to define him by just that military service, but if you find out how elite that unit was, there's so much to it and there's so much bigger that people just don't understand. And all that time, for some reason in my head, I just thought that there was something that needed to be told, because it just seemed like he wasn't just in the Army. He wasn't just, I don't say this lightly, just a Green Beret. There was something bigger than this.
Right.
And come to find out, there's a lot. There's a lot more bigger stuff there, and not to define him by that short military service, but that's the story that I have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what it's about. And I thought it was a good idea to finally get it together. The original idea was really just to get some of it saved digitally or whatever, preserved, and hand it down. And then it became this thing,
Yeah. How did it become this thing? Because it is great. You're giving a piece of history to
Well,
down to your family, to the people that you will never meet because you will die at some point, and those children of those children will then have a piece of your history. But what made it go bigger and better and like outside of just
it
the
was a combination of those little coincidences. It was when I hooked up with a local producer. I met him kind of through the music world, and because he was doing rock and roll documentaries and stuff. And come to find out, when I shook his hand when I was introduced to him, he goes, Fitz, are you related to that soldier that was missing for 21 years in Abington? I said, yeah, I'm kind of. I'm his only son, you know. Well, give you an idea how separate we kind of were from my father's side of the family, is that he told me, he goes, I did a little video for your grandparents back in 1990-91 after your dad's remains were returned, because my parents were good friends with your dad's parents. So when I went up to his studio, we always tell the story. I had this big Rubbermaid, box tote full of old VHS tapes and stuff. He reaches his hand in. The first one he pulls out is the one he gave my grandparents.
Oh my gosh.
91. And I never knew.
Man, God works in crazy ways.
So that's only one of the little minor things. But I guess to answer that question is, I was actually finding out even more as we were traveling and doing these interviews and talking to people. And so you're asking how it grew legs. It grew legs by itself, because I was finding out stuff I never knew. I was finding out stuff that people never had recorded. I had, everything. And these guys, all this unit, they're still trying to put together their history, because there was no records taken. This was all, classified stuff. You get caught, we don't know you. That type of thing.
Yeah.
So there was none of that stuff like you see today. Nothing happens in real time like it. Nobody's there taking everything into account. It wasn't there. And so I'm now meeting these people that knew my father or served with my father, and they're telling me information that nobody ever knew. So I'm learning it as I go, and all of a sudden the story's getting so big that now I'm looking at what we've done. It's a great story, it's a great DVD, but now I'm actually forced to go, I got to go backwards. Now I got to do the book version, because it's going to be so different.
Right. You must have come across where, I just can't imagine, and tell me if this has happened. I'd love to hear a story of someone saying like, wow, thank you. If they've seen the documentary, or something, that they're like, you opened my eyes or answered so many questions that I had. And whether it's someone that served with your father or a like story of it, I could just imagine it hits home because it's so real.
I do have a few of those stories. I think on one side of it, the gentleman that was really close to my dad, who was actually on his team, I interviewed him, and there was certain closure, I think, for him, because they were really tight. He really had a hard time with this. And let's put it this way. I went out to interview him in South Dakota, and he still had my father's South Vietnamese jump certificate from 50 years ago.
Wow.
He still had it and gave it to me, because they all had to do their jump with the forces that they were supporting over there. So anyway, so that it kind of touches what you're talking about. But there's also one of the facts that after I started linking all these together, I was able to figure out some details about to prove what team my father was on. I also was, after looking at all these couple letters home and other witnesses, that there's possibly other medals that he was supposed to get. And he was on a mission that they were all put in for Silver Stars for a prisoner of war snatch. And one of the gentlemen on that team got the award. My father did not. They were all put in for it. So, and then I tie in this other thing, that my father was just about to take over a team leader position for another team, and that's right that was almost right before he went on this volunteer mission, this impromptu mission, and he got killed. So he was actually slated to be a team leader. He was running
I mean, like, what is that? Do you feel like, how do you even do that? Like, oh, do you feel like you need to somehow have that medal for him or fight for it? Or is it just a fact? Like, interesting that this didn't happen.
You know, it gets, it's kind of an odd road for me to go down. I really kind of get aimless about it because I've been told, you know, you should contact your senator and this and that, you know, but there's a lot of these guys, they weren't in it for the medals. They didn't give a flying F about the medals. You know, that's not what it was about. I think it's probably the right thing to do. There is a lot of red tape and some political stuff that has to be dealt with. Mm-hmm. Corralling that in at the moment, you know, there's certain things that I hate to say it, but I got to clone myself to be able to survive today. And to put all this time aside to do that is incredibly difficult for me. It's just how it is. And I know it's there. I understand what's going on. There's also another Bronze Star that should be upgraded to a V device. You know, so that would be 2 Bronze Stars. You know, it's just, but there's a lot of, like I said, there's just a lot of stuff to be dealt with, and I got to chip it away at it, little pieces, little bites, and one thing at a time. But it's definitely on my mind. You know.
Now, what do you think? With you have this documentary, and then like you had talked about creating a book that'll be even probably more impactful from just like our
it is. It goes into what kind of like how my life trajectory went. Not to cut you off, but you know.
No, which is fascinating to tell the story of your father and his unit and all of that, and then the ripple effect that created unknowingly,
right?
To then circle back, and you guys are reconnected now. So what do you hope when people watch this documentary? What are you hoping that people get away from it?
I guess a couple things. Mainly, I'd like to just have these people be able to connect with me if they have gone through something similar. Of course, it's being a Gold Star family member is not out of the ordinary. But my situation, truthfully, is a very, very rare thing. You know, I wrote an article, and what I told them in the article was, it's kind of funny how all of a sudden it took me, you know, a few decades to really realize how elite my Gold Star Club was because of the circumstances. So I guess I want people to understand that, you know, even though these things are tragic, there's another way to come out of this. On the other side, I'm not going to tell you I don't have dark days. I know I will. It's how my life was started.
Right.
But, you know, you still get up every day, and you do what you have to do, and you feel like you're accomplishing something. You feel like you might be helping somebody or others, and you have to be honest, and you have to be, you know, you have to take the walls down a little bit and expose yourself when you talk about these things. And that's the best way to help others, let alone yourself. So that's kind of the main thing that I want to show people is that, hey, listen, you can come out of this not being negative. I am the perfect poster child for being negative about our government. But you got to understand, this is what they wanted. These guys volunteered for all this stuff. They could have left any time, you know? And so that's where I'm coming from. I want to, and I have to support it because that's what they believed in, something bigger than themselves. And you turn around today and you look at it and you go, you know what? We have people like that to thank for our everyday freedoms, you know, and I want people to realize that.
Yeah, those stories, I'm so glad you took it and didn't keep it to yourself. You allowed kind of all those blessings of people and coincidences, you know, that got perfectly placed in your life to kind of evolve into this, because our history we have to learn from it. It is so important in creating a new world every day. So I'm so glad and thankful that you kind of stepped out of yourself and took on this, because it takes time, it takes effort. Yeah. It takes emotional
It's
time.
still ongoing. It's ongoing. Yeah. It has to be.
Yeah.
Because every little piece you learn from it, and you might have to heal another little scab or scar over there about it, but that's what it's about.
It is. Yeah, it is. And I'm so this Saturday, you will be on Oscar Mike Radio. We're going to be viewing it. There's going to be a question and answer period. There's going to be a lot of stuff that's happening, and I get to sit in and help. So I'm super pumped about that.
We all are. It's going to
be
be
seeing you on Saturday. So everyone, tune in. Just quick and easy. You can go to Oscar Mike Radio. I'm sure it's going to be on your page. It's going to be on my page, but
Staff Sergeant Richard A. Fitz page. It'll be on there. I don't know much about this. YouTube, I think, it's going to be on.
It's going to be everywhere. You're going to get.
That's right. Yeah. You all have no choice.
Right. So you can watch the documentary, but then you can live interact, ask questions to you that have that opportunity in that real life back and forth.
I'm going to be doing my best to type and answer questions, because all this tech stuff, I'm getting.
Travis got your back. Travis he's always got the tech back.
Genius behind that, man.
He is my man. Yeah. He's going to be on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
The man behind the curtain.
Yes. With the voice that I love. And
I told him. He'll tell you. I told him.
Yeah.
We're going somewhere with that.
He definitely is. But before I let you go, to see you and sit next to you on Saturday when we're together to go deeper into who you are, watch your documentary, get all those questions and answers section, which I can't wait to actually have, because I want to hear what people want to know. I want to know, I know there's other Gold Star sons out there, daughters out there, mothers, from all ranges, right? From the Vietnam, like your father, to now, and having that and seeing that healing. Anyways, I could go on forever, but I'm not. I'm going to ask you my last question of the day. In this moment right now, Rich, what does love mean to you?
Yeah, that question. Boy, there's a lot of answers. At this moment, to me, I think this may sound like an out, but I think this is love. Because people care. People are interested in my story. When you're interested, when you show concern, when you show the sharing and getting involved, I think that's a pretty good answer, because it gives you on my side, it gives you a sense of purpose and meaning, and then that I'm doing something right, and in a way that you can show that to somebody else. I think that's love.
Yeah, I love that, and your actions are showing that. So perfect. Right. Perfect. Yeah, you're living in your truth. You are living your truth, and that is one of, when we can live our truth and lead with love, my two mottos that I live by. Amazing things happen, and you touch amazing people that you had no idea needed that even touch. Daniel, you didn't miss it. You can listen to it, but also tune in on Saturday. I just saw Daniel tuned in. You're going to love this documentary. I'm sure, Daniel, you'll have questions for Rich too that he'll be able to answer live. So, and Travis said, your answer is much better than his answer about love. But don't worry, I won't hassle you like I hassle him every day about leading with love and living truth. Right, Travis? Can never get away from me. But to everybody else out there, remember, as always, love hard, love pure, and love proactive. We will see you Saturday. Take care.
Bye-bye.